A great win for Chelsea in the FA Cup, who avoided getting mauled by the Tigers at the MKM Stadium. Welcome back to the Chelsea Blueprint. I'm Sunsport's Lloyd Canfield. Joining me is Jack Rosser. Jack, do you like the little intro?
I'm going to go and wash my eyes out, I think.
We're going to get into the first section of the show, which is new, and it's called Chelsea Stocks. So myself and Jack are going to name a player who, from this game, the game against Hull, the 4-0 win, a player whose stocks have risen and a player whose stocks have fallen. So Jack, we'll come to you first. Which Chelsea player's stocks rose for you?
I think the Pedro Neto is an obvious one. I think, despite his calamity, embarrassment, whatever you want to call it, in the first half, I think Liam Delap, it was a good day for him. There's a lot of focus on him having worked with Rossini before, both of them going back to Hull where they enjoyed a good relationship. We've not seen anywhere near the best of Liam Delap since he made the move from Chelsea. It was a bit of a steal for them to get him at 30 million given the clause that was in his contract at Ipswich. He's obviously struggled with a lot of injury problems and also some rather silly, I think, earlier in this competition, got sent off at Wolves on his return from injury. And there's been a bit of, come on, we need to see something from you now. And yes, it's championship opposition, it's a lot of changes, but an encouraging day for him, really. Didn't get the goal that he should have done, and he'll know himself that he didn't do the right sort of professional things in that moment, wheeling away to celebrate before making sure that the ball had crossed the line.
Bizarre moment.
But the way he responded in the second half, in sort of being that focal point that not only can hold a ball up and lay it off as he did for Pedro Neto, but the run he made down the right to tee up Esteval as well. We all sort of laughed, scratched our heads when he was started out on the right wing against Arsenal in the semi-final of the Carabao Cup at Arsenal, and really, through no fault of his own, no one really did much that night, but didn't do a lot down the right wing. I think there maybe against lesser opposition was an example of what he can do down there, and I think he would have wanted a goal, obviously, but a good all-round performance. He thought he had one. I thought it was quite funny. You were there yourself watching from the stands, but having it on the telly, Shearer absolutely hammered him for the chance he missed, and then was really at pains to praise him for everything else he did. But I think he did deserve some praise for some of the work he did in the second half. But I suppose Pedro Neto is another one as well that has maybe unfairly had quite a lot of stick. He made a very solid, good start to the season. And you can't expect a player, regardless of age, to be incredible all the way through. People are going to have peaks and troughs, especially players that have played all summer as well. With the Club World Cup, I think Pedro Neto, for the start of the season under Enzo Maresca, was their most reliable and productive winger for the start of the season. He's allowed a dip off, and I think it would be a nice boost for him to go and get that hat-trick in the Cup.
Yeah, I think, my stock rising whilst we're discussing Neto it has to be Neto, really. I mean, he bag a hat-trick, it would be rude of me not to put him as my player whose stock is rising. After, especially, as you mentioned, it's been a bit of a tough ride for Neto, and I feel he has had it somewhat unfairly, because as a fan, I do find him sometimes frustrating to watch, in the sense he does so much good work, he does so much hard work, especially all the running back, the tracking back, and when he gets forward he can be really creative. He puts in some really good crosses. Sometimes obviously it's not his fault that no one's on the end of them, especially when he was playing with Delap, it felt like the crosses would go in and there would just be no one in there.
The runs onto the wrong post or something.
Unless it was Enzo Fernandez sometimes in the middle when he was playing that kind of number 10 role. It felt as though Neto was doing a lot of good work and not getting any reward for that, and some of the stuff he gets online to me is ridiculous. I understand being frustrated at a player, but choosing to vent your frustrations at Pedro Neto over the likes of Garnacho, Gittins, all of whom have come in with the same expectations as Neto, but he has delivered significantly more on those expectations, I would argue, than the other wingers that Chelsea have got. He's probably also damaged a little bit by the fact that everyone wants to see Esteval play. Everyone at Stamford Bridge loves Esteval, gets on their feet when he's playing. He's a magical player. And then you see Neto and you can feel a little bit as if he's taking away from Esteval developing. But like you mentioned, this was a brilliant game for him. A hat-trick will definitely give him a bit of confidence and a bit of a confidence boost. And also he was kind of playing in the number 10 position for a lot of the game. We thought it would be Esteval starting in the 10 and Neto out on the right in his more preferred position, but he was really, really good actually in the middle.
Well, I think to your point, being able to do that helps Esteval. It doesn't take away from him, because there's been a lot of, and I know this is something Maresca and his coaches thought about, and I'm sure it's something that Rosinha and his coaches would have thought about, is where you can put Esteval in a game where he's going to be able to show the best of him.
Yeah.
Because he's not scared of a challenge or a tackle, or some of them can be misguided, but he's still a teenager, he's very slight.
Yeah.
Are you going to see against championship opposition big physical players that get away with an awful lot more in the championship than you do in the Premier League? The protection isn't there. Are you going to get the best of Esteval in a number 10 position in that sort of game? You're not. Out on the right, there's a bit less to worry about in terms of players coming from all angles, a bit more freedom to run at people and show what you can do. So Neto being able to do both, whether it's Palmer that plays in the 10, he plays on the right, ties up the fullback, Esteval comes on and looked brilliant, half down to what Pedro Neto's done in terms of working against the fullback, or Neto can move into the middle and Esteval can start on the right. I think both of those things help him.
Definitely. And his versatility will be really, really helpful for whoever the manager is, and that's why he's been selected so frequently in the absence of players like Palmer, when they didn't have a reliable first choice striker to go for at the start of the season. He's played on the right, he's played on the left. That's really helpful. So whose stocks fell for you in this game? There's an obvious one for me.
I was going to say, I think we both agree on this one.
Yeah, it has to be Garnacho, because it feels hard to dig anyone out in a 4-0 win, and that's why we probably have both agreed. There's going to be other episodes going forward where we'll have a different player for this one, but it feels like in a 4-0 win there's only one guy you can kind of dig out, and it was Garnacho. It was the same again from him, in the sense of it's just uninspiring, that the losing of the ball, and it's really frustrating more than anything.
For me, all season, he does it here and there, but it's the reluctance to take on his fullback and early on try and get past them and lay down a marker. I think we've all seen, and it might be a tactical thing that's a challenge for him, in that he's better in a direct team. He showed that at Man United a lot on the break, when they can move the ball quickly forwards. And I think when they've done that, the way Chelsea played in the first half against Leeds last week, it wasn't direct in the old sense of ping it up to someone up top, but it was direct in the sense of quick forward passing. And that helps them, and I think that would help him if they can play like that a bit more, and there's space for him to run into. The frustrating thing is watching him stand up against a fullback and 9 times out of 10 pass it back inside to Fernandes or back to Cucurella, and not just, knock it past them and try and beat them and either win a corner, a free kick, get his fullback on a booking, something like that. That's the real frustration with him, I think, for myself and probably a lot of fans as well. Yeah,
I think it's hard to disagree with your views there on Garnacho. They definitely reflect mine. I think Mamadou Sarr also was really good in this game. He's not our player for his stocks going up, but his debut for Chelsea, really, really impressive. I think it's helped that he's worked with Rosinha. And Rosinha, I wrote a little bit this week about Rosinha being the player whisperer, how he's kind of getting the best out of these players. Obviously, Sarr not necessarily one of them, but might go on to become one of them, where he's getting the best out of the players who were lesser used by the likes of Maresca. You're looking at Hato, Andre Santos. Santos been absolutely brilliant for me.
He was fantastic against Leeds, wasn't he?
Since Rosinha came in, really. And I think that's got to be one of Rosinha's biggest strengths.
Yeah, certainly. There's a lot of, if we're not just looking at this one game and taking the stocks thing on a bit, you look at, since he came in, if you had stocks in Santos, Hato, you're laughing, because Hato looked like someone who's, every time Maresca was asked about him, just sort of said, he's fine, but we're not going to use him. I think he came in really early under Rosinha, and we're all a bit surprised. He came in at Charlton, scored at Charlton, obviously, and we've been surprised at quite how much he's been willing to use him, but you do get an understanding of why he was so highly rated when he came over. He's not, pulled up any trees, but he's looked encouraging, he's looked solid. There's been a couple of games where he's not been helped by Garnacho in front of him. Those two down that side haven't quite worked, but he will certainly have been lifted in terms of, all right, I can do this, I can compete. And I think with Cucurella, we've never really seen it from him before, but having to starting to struggle with a couple of injury bits from probably where he's been overused and worn down over a long time at Chelsea. It's helpful and necessary to have that sort of cover, and someone that you're not just going to be dropping in having had his confidence knocked by the previous manager and then not used. You look at him, you look at Santos, as we mentioned, he's put in some fantastic performances that really make you think, why was he not getting used, especially when you've got Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez, who, and maybe a broader thing, Caicedo has been incredible for large parts this season, but it's just fallen away a bit in the last couple of weeks from the levels we've seen before. But him and Enzo Fernandez have been playing all season with injury problems.
Yeah.
And it's baffling to see Santos playing at the level he is now, that we've not seen more of him.
Yeah.
Just
Earlier.
to manage that, even if it's for the last half hour of a game that looks all right. We'll come on to talk about it, but there haven't been that many games where the last half hours look too comfortable this season. But he's clearly capable of coming in and making an impact in those positions and giving Enzo Fernandez or Moises Caicedo a much-earned rest. And then Delap is another one that maybe now has turned a corner and the level might rise again. And again, it's someone that Racinia's worked with before.
Yeah, and there's just still work to do with Garnacho. But who knows? Maybe he can turn him around as well. If he can do it with Delap, he's done it with Santos, Hato, maybe Garnacho will be the next one. It will just take a little bit longer.
Got a lot to get to.
Yeah, there's a lot of deep work to be done there, but who knows? Don't put it past Racina. The last talking point really from this game is one that at the time didn't kick up any fuss, really, because I saw this video that's been going around plenty yesterday and then again today of the Chelsea players as they're arriving to the game. There's a group of mascots in a corner, I think it's fair to say, and the Chelsea players are arriving to the game, heading to the changing room. They've all got their headphones in, focused, and they're walking past these Hull, it must be mentioned also, mascots. Not one of them stops, gives a little handshake, flashes a smile even. And there's been a lot of negative reaction towards those Chelsea players. What are your thoughts on that, firstly?
I don't really care. I think that's the hard bit. I think, all right, it would be great if they could all go and give them a little high five and march off to the dressing room. All the kids have got smiles on their face. I always think that must be great as a player to be able to just go and, give somebody a high five or smile at them and you've made their day. But really, in the grand scheme of things, this happened a couple of years ago when Pochettino was in charge, where a mascot was just left on the pitch.
I think that's a bit more...
Which that was,
serious. Not necessarily serious,
in a way that these things are serious or not. That was probably a worse thing to do, to leave a little kid stranded like that and not knowing what to do. But, these kids are going to walk out the tunnel with them. They'll all shake their hands and give them a high five there. They might end up with a shirt or something in the game. You never know what goes on in these sort of things. I don't think it's the biggest problem. I don't think we can read into a deeper, issue with the Chelsea squad that they've not given a mascot they probably didn't spot while they were walking to the changing room a high five. I don't think we need to go to the point of anyone apologising or anything like that.
Yeah, I don't think that's necessary.
And I just think it's an example of people need things to be angry about at some points, and they've won 4-0, so there's nothing else to have a go at them for.
Yeah, I do. I largely agree with you, actually, but there is still a part of me, maybe I'm too much of an empath, but there is a part of me that just thinks, just give them a smile. No,
it's the easiest thing in the world to do is give them a high five, but if you've not seen someone, you can't high five them.
Yeah, I don't necessarily buy that they wouldn't have seen them. I mean, Liam Delap, for one, goes in and obviously recognises someone from his time at Hull and goes in and gives her a hug, but they're right there. It doesn't necessarily sit right with me that they would do that, but I do understand also the element of...
It would have been nice if they'd gone over and said hello. I just don't think it's the biggest sin in the world.
It's not that big of a deal. It's definitely been made out to be more than what it is, and it should also be mentioned that, like you said, they then line up with them. All the Chelsea players are then more than happy to give them a high five, to do that, to then give them a smile and blah blah blah. It's just a case of like, why can't you just do it?
No, footballers get a lot of justified stick.
Yeah,
for some things they do. I don't think this falls in that category.
Yeah, that's fair to say. But we had to talk about it because it's been such a big talking point. Like I said, massively probably blown out of proportion. But we had to talk about it and had to get your thoughts on it as well. The next game for Chelsea, I mean, they've got a little while off now, and we've seen some...
It's lovely, isn't it? We get midweek off.
Some players also have been seemingly given a bit of a break. Palmer's been in Dubai for Valentine's Day with his missus, which, he had a much nicer Valentine's Day than what I did. But Wesley Fofana's been out there as well, and it's nice to see the players actually get a bit of a break after the Club World Cup. It's probably much needed before they play Burnley next weekend.
Yeah, I think this is the thing that's loomed over their entire season, really, that you sort of forget at different points if players are breaking down or dipping in form with, like we mentioned, Neto, Caicedo in the last few weeks. They've been non-stop since the start of last season, when they came into that off the back of the Euros as well. There's been so much going on that they need a break wherever they can get one, really. Whether that's, I don't know how much good for your legs get from a weekend in Dubai, but instead of just staying at home. I do mind
some good, I reckon.
Yeah, but they need these chances wherever they can get them. Yes, it would have been nice, and it was nice when all the injured players went up to Man City with them, when Callum McFarlane was in charge and sort of kept part of it. But I think we all understand that where they can get a break, they need to take one. It's, like we mentioned, it's been game every few days. I think Rosinha had 10 games in his first month as a manager.
That's mental,
which is just, we all know it's busy this time of year, but it's why getting in the top 8 of the Champions League was so precious, to have these 2 clear midweeks. Yes, it's important for him to get a bit of tactical work into them on the training ground, but mainly just to rest and recover, because there's so many in this Chelsea squad that have been playing with niggles or close to niggles, and minutes being managed is a huge thing, and they need to be in a position where, before he went, actually, Maresca spoke about this a lot when he was asked about rotation. They're rotating now so that, touch wood, they can get to March, April, May and not have to rotate, and have a settled centre-back pairing, and have a spine of the team that is performing and able to perform on a regular basis. They need to take every chance to do this, because, like you said, they've got a bit of a break now. There's no midweek game next week, I don't think. That clears things out. And they're also... Rosinha's had a very good start in terms of results. The fixture list has been quite kind.
Yeah, 100%.
After this Burnley game, it gets pretty notching
tough.
Up, and they've got a really difficult run. The Champions League will come back into play. The later rounds of the Cup as well, we'll see who they get in the draw. That all builds into, they need a squad that's resilient and as rested as it can be.
Do you think then this Burnley game really... Obviously Chelsea will be favourites to win it at home, but this really is a must-win game, in the sense that after this it gets significantly trickier, so they have to win this to put themselves in the best position. I always struggle with
must-win. Nothing is ever really a must win, but I think what we need from this one, having seemed like they eradicated the sort of lack of, holding on to the lack of concentration, it seemed like Rosinha had dealt with that. The Leeds game obviously crumbled that completely. They had a 6-minute spell where it fell apart. Silly mistakes, silly challenges, tired mistakes, not thinking, obviously changing it around. You've got a young centre-half there in Achimpong who was at the heart of the second goal. They need to be able to go out there and show they have got a backbone. So Burnley obviously just been knocked out of the cup by Mansfield. They obviously got a good result at Crystal Palace last week, but Palace have got their own problems. They need to go there, get ahead, and show that they can stay ahead, because the challenges that they've got coming up, Arsenal away, we've seen how they went there and how they had to set up to try and contain them in the Carabao Cup. Newcastle, you don't know what you're going to get. David Moyes' teams are traditionally, very hard to perform against. I know they beat them at Stamford Bridge, and they've not got a very good record in their new stadium, Everton, but that regardless is going to be a tricky game. Everton have got their own things that they're going for. They're hovering around the edge of the European places, and David Moyes no doubt will want to do something special there in terms of taking them in back at his old club.
Tyreek George might have a point to prove. Can he play?
He won't be able to play because he's on loan.
Dewsbury Hall
will definitely have a point to prove. I saw him fairly recently get a couple of goals at Fulham for them, and he's looking good. All of this, they'll need to go in with questions in their head answered, in terms of, we can do this, we can get ahead, we can hold on to it, because they're still struggling to get Stamford Bridge behind them as well. The atmosphere there has been crap all season, and not really something that the 2-2 draw against Burnley would have helped. They need to go there and get people on side. With the performance they put on in the first half against Leeds was fantastic. If they can get that after a rest, having been able to make the changes in the Cup, they can get that over 80, 90 minutes, then it'll be a big day for them and a big result regardless of who they're playing.
I think also this game is probably the first time this season really that also there's no excuse really not to win. They've had a bit of a break, Palmer's been off in Dubai, he's got to come back refreshed. There's no, apart from Marc Cucurella, there's no glaring absences in the team. Obviously Colwill a bit longer term, but they've got through games without him this season. there's no
They've had their
reason
first full week
they
with
shouldn't
Rosenior,
win it.
yeah.
Yeah, they've had a week to properly train. Rosenior's now settled in. There's no reason why they can't win it. They simply, to me, have to win.
No, and these are the games where they've slipped before. Sunderland at home, Brighton at home.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're of a higher quality than Burnley. Leeds at home. These are the games that really, when they're wanting to compete across a long period of the Premier League season, they can win trophies. They won 2 trophies last year. They could win the FA Cup this year. They won't win the Champions League this year, but they could.
Never know.
They won't win the Champions League this year. They could win the FA Cup this year. But as any manager will tell you, while it's not easy to go and win a cup competition, it's a hell of a lot easier than doing well in the Premier League. And going and doing that, these are the games where they've fallen down and where, when they've built themselves into a position that we might be able to compete in a title race. They went toe-to-toe with Arsenal with 10 men when they were still in that position of, they could have cut Arsenal down to 3 points at the top. They could have still been in that mix. These are the games where over the last 2 years they've fallen down. They did it with Everton last season around Christmas, and they've done it in too many of these games this year. This is almost, Rosenior convincing himself and this squad that they're capable of just ticking off these easy ones and moving forward.
Yeah, and I'm sure the team themselves will be fairly confident in that matter, and they seem pretty ambitious in terms of the Champions League. No one backed them to win it in 2012 or 2021, and they went and did it, so don't rule them out just yet this season.
I will rule them out this season.
Okay, well, I won't rule them out yet this season. That is unfortunately all we got time for on this episode of the Chelsea Blueprint. Thank you very much for watching. Let us know in the comments just on that if you think Chelsea can win the Champions League this year, but also let us know what you think of the game against Hull. Let us know what you think on the mascot debate as well. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week. Thank you very much.